Welcome to the Parenting Versus podcast. Happy New Year.
Feliz Año Nuevo?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not yet, but it will be.
Yeah. Today's New Year's Eve, 2021.
Good riddance.
Yeah. What were you looking at just now?
Just now. Oh, I was taking like a... I like to declutter things. And that includes like my podcast, not subscriptions, but like the ones I follow. And so I was looking at my podcast library and seeing like, what do I actually listen to? What do I not listen to? And then just like unsubscribing from the ones I don't listen to or that I've already finished that are just taking up space.
Cleaning house.
Yeah, I know you don't have to do that, but for my brain it just helps.
No, like I'm the same way. I like my digital world to be very tidy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like sometimes I don't know what I want to listen to, but it kind of like gets rid of all the like excess garbage when I'm trying to figure it out. So
Yeah. There's
taking out the digital trash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of podcasts I haven't listened to in a long time that aren't really my jam anymore. Like it's crazy. Like enough time has passed in the podcasting era that there are shows that I don't listen to anymore.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I know. I feel like there's some too where it was like you had to be super current on it and then they just stopped. Yeah. And so like you binged them, you caught up, and then you're like, and then they've sat in my like subscription box for like a year, but they haven't put out any new content since like 2020. And I'm like, you're done. Yep.
No, like, yeah, I feel the same way. Podcasting is like a really new thing, and now it's really picked up, yeah. I guess.
Well, I think some of that too is like a lot of the podcasts that I like to listen to are they're not like super famous. Mm-hmm. So it's that whole curve of like people getting really motivated. They start a podcast, they put out like 5 episodes, they put in a lot of work, and then they realize like how much work it is and it just drops off.
Yeah. I mean, to think about somebody being a famous podcaster though, that's like a really new thing.
I know.
Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the famous podcasts right now. Like there's the Joe Rogan Experience. Ugh. Yeah,
I think that's the one that everybody cites as like the example of podcastery fame because that's like the most common.
He's got like insane numbers, I think.
Yeah. And
Spotify signed him to some contract or whatever.
But do you think his numbers are due to like popularity or like longevity or both?
Do you mean like his reputation of just being a celebrity?
Yeah.
I think probably a little bit of both.
Also, it's been around for a long time, and he was making podcasts before a lot of people were doing it mainstream, so his numbers might be tied to like longevity.
And I've listened to a couple of his podcasts, not recently, but I know he gets some really big names on his podcasts. Like he had Marcus Brownlee, who's my favorite YouTuber, on his podcast.
The tech guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had Elon Musk, which is his famous like smoking weed meme or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets crazy numbers, and he's been podcasting for a long time, I guess. But like he's famous. Who else is famous? Like Spooked, like you were talking about, has a subscription. Like you have to subscribe now.
And that's the thing is, I'll do it. Like
that's the thing.
Take my money, Spooked. I'll do it. I subscribed for a long time. And usually what they do is they release all of the season of Spooked in October, so you can binge it. Like if you pay for the month, you can binge it, and then you can unpay or unsubscribe. I don't know. Stop paying for the monthly thing.
Yeah.
For Luminary.
I like unpay better.
And then you can unpay. Luminary, not a sponsor. But if you, that'd be great.
I wish.
I know. Help us monetize. So I used to do that. Like I'd just pay for the month of October. I'd binge listen to all the episodes, and then I would just unpay. And now they're stretching out the season like all year. So you have to stay subscribed to hear the whole season. And that's the kicker.
People are addicted to their, what's that chemical that goes through your brain?
Dopamine?
When you're afraid.
Oh,
I did a lesson on this when I was a science teacher.
Adrenaline?
Maybe a little bit of adrenaline. Yeah.
Dopamine and serotonin are what's released like pleasure chemicals, like when you're happy.
Yeah. But when you're afraid, another chemical gets released and your body likes it. Like after you're scared.
It's adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah. People do crazy things on adrenaline.
Oh, yeah. Adrenaline junkies.
You can't do.
Yeah. So it makes sense that they'd be on a subscription because it would be almost like kicking a habit. So they're going to, whoever likes Spooked, if that's your thing, like you're going to pay for that subscription.
And I will. I'm not ashamed, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sucks because now I have to like either put up or shut up, and like I want to hear the episodes, but I can't. I don't want to pay for this.
There's got to be some way. There's hackers out there. Figure it out.
Sucks. I want to binge them all.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So like, podcasting has definitely grown leaps and bounds. We started our podcast 2017, I think.
Yeah.
2017?
I think so.
No, before that. I think it
16
was.
maybe.
Yeah, 2016, which is crazy. 5 years.
Yeah.
Dang.
I think.
Yeah, I started listening to podcasts. Well, okay, so can I just like rant
Can
for
you
a
just
second?
say something? Sure.
You used to say that all the time.
Can I just
when
say something?
Yeah. You know what? That's crazy. Like I'm thinking about that and your personality and like how you are now. Now you're comfortable enough with me that you just like you
That I just
you
say
just say it.
I word vomited out.
Yeah, but back when we first met, like you're just like jumping
Should I say
within your
this?
body, like you wanted to say something and you were being polite because like people are new. So you're like, can I just say something? I just need to say something.
It might be a little bit of ADHD too. Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. Like now,
Can I just say something? There it
Yes.
is. No, the ADHD brain. You feel like if it's not gonna come out of your mouth right that second, you're gonna lose it forever. So it's a very important. If it feels important to you, you feel like you need to just say it out loud because otherwise it's just lost out there,
yeah, it's crazy.
and you'll never come
Not
back
crazy,
to that
but
thought again.
not crazy, but it's
You're
interesting.
calling me crazy?
No, I was saying that's crazy, like interesting. But anyways, yeah, podcasting for me. I first saw that word podcast when I got my iPod. I got an iPod, 80 gigabyte, like the old school iPod with the clicker wheel. Loved that thing. That was one of my most favorite devices that I ever bought. I'm a music lover, so I put my entire music library on my iPod. I would ride my skateboard around UNM. It was the best. But in my iPod, there was a folder for podcasts, and I'm like, what the hell is a podcast? I don't know what a podcast is.
Apple influenced you from that moment forward.
Well, so I started to think about this, like, okay, well, let's look in iTunes, like, what are podcasts? And I started looking around. I'm like, oh, they're just like, and it was like a new concept to me. I couldn't like grasp it. I'm like, oh, they're like radio shows.
Was it an iPod Shuffle?
No, it was an iPod. It was the main iPod.
I'm literally looking at vintage iPods for sale. I'm
It's
so
an
curious.
iPod. It was an iPod. I want to say it was like
Like this?
the fifth generation. Yeah, like that. And
Somebody wants $419 for
those
that.
things, like,
Now.
I have these like ideas that I'm gonna go back to like the way it was and carry a flip phone and an iPod and be so much happier.
You can buy this one for $25.
That is an iPod. That's an iPod Nat. No, iPod Mini.
I was just thinking it'd be really
Mine
cool.
was like that one, like an iPod. It was
Fifth or sixth generation.
fifth generation, or yeah.
$67.95 on eBay. I think we should buy one for our 9-year-old and just like let him play music. He would probably love the shit out of that.
Yeah,
For real.
yeah.
Oh, whoa. Okay, somebody on eBay is selling an iPod 3rd generation with the charging dock. That's wild.
Oh yeah, for $55.
Boom. Sold.
Those are cool.
We should
I
totally
like,
get one.
you know what, and I like the iPod that came out before that, where it was like a monochrome screen, like a white and black screen. Those were cool. Mine was a color, so you could actually watch videos on mine. It was like a tiny 2-inch like screen,
I remember that.
and you could buy episodes on iTunes and just watch them. So I bought a couple of South Park episodes for whatever reason. And I remember talking to my friend Jeff. I'm like, dude, this is good. This is like the future. Like this is gonna be a thing. Like people are gonna watch videos on their devices, and we're just kind of like, because at the time, like
Yeah.
that was not a thing. Like 2004, 2003, 2005, like whatever it was. Like though, like smartphones were not really even.
But isn't it weird to think that 2004, 2005, that wasn't, I mean, in retrospect, that wasn't that long ago? Really? I mean, it feels like it wasn't that long ago to me. Maybe that's just me.
About to be 20 years.
But like, think about in 20 years how far technology has come,
guess-
like how fast.
Yeah.
Because if that's where we were at 20 years ago and here's where we are now, that's exponentially, like, that's major growth.
Yeah.
Apple iPod Nano, first generation, $563.22. That's just greedy, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's
the
like
Nano
too
was
much.
cool though.
Like,
it was
you're
just
a little over your
compact.
budget there, pal.
Yeah. Anyways, Yeah, so I started looking around at these podcasts, and it didn't really make that much sense to me because you had to add the podcasts and then sync them. Like, think about this, youngins. Like,
Young.
you you're
I don't think any young people listen to this podcast.
yeah.
They're not parents. They
No,
don't
that's
give
true.
a shit.
I mean, you could be parents, young parents, but your iPod didn't have a connection directly to the internet. So, like, if you wanted to listen to a podcast, you couldn't just like listen to it.
Right.
You had to go to your laptop or your computer, your desktop or whatever.
Convert it, download
No,
it.
you had to like select the ones you wanted to sync to your iPod, and then when you charged your iPod, it synced all of your pictures, all of your everything, and that's when your podcast would. So it was like a process. Now you just like, oh, I want to listen to that podcast. Boom, it's like there. But that was a really long explanation for something that I wanted to talk about.
We'll talk about it.
All right. So that was my introduction to podcasts. But the first podcast that I really sort of started getting into was the Bad Christian podcast, and that was in 2012 or 13. I didn't have an iPhone at the time. I had a Motorola Droid.
Okay. Anyway,
That
so neat.
I know that detail is
I love
important
that
to
for
me.
you.
Isn't that weird? Like that detail is important to me, but like for you, you're like, okay.
Get on with the story, sir.
So I didn't have the iPod. I didn't have the I didn't have the podcasting app on my phone, so I had to like hack it a little bit. But I listened to that podcast, and I'm like, oh, this would be cool to actually do this, like to have a podcast. So, anyways,
Yeah, no, I can't even remember the first like quote unquote podcast that I even started listening to like officially, like as a fan or like as something I was like, yeah, this seems like a cool thing. Like I don't even know. I feel like it was probably
wait, did you start podcasting yourself before you actually got into like podcasts?
kind of. It was back. Everything's backwards for me all the time. This is not surprising to me at all. I think the one that I really listened to where I was like, okay, yeah, was, oh, gosh.
Was it a crime one?
Yeah, we listened to it on that road trip, like a really long road trip. We were driving. We drove through the South. It's about the town and then...
Oh,
Why?
S-Town?
Yes, thank you.
S-Town, that was our trip from, I think, San Francisco back to Albuquerque.
Maybe, yeah. No, that's crazy. My brain is just like so shot right now. Yeah, I think S-Town was the podcast that made me think like, oh, all right, I kind of dig this.
S-Town was good.
S-Town was really good. That was kind of like one of the OG podcasts that everybody
Yeah.
was talking about. That and like This American Life.
Yeah.
What was the one? There was another one. Like Adnan Syed. That one.
Are you talking about the one about the cult?
Serial. The Serial podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That was the other one where I was like, yep, I'm into it. Because I remember I was working at Goodwill. I had to do these like file audits every Friday. They sucked. And we had to like, literally they would take like files out of the archives in the back room at Goodwill and make us audit them for all the paperwork. And if it wasn't there, we had to go find the paperwork, and it was just a shit show. It was a paper shit show.
Dang.
And so I asked my boss, like, look, if I do this, can I like throw on some headphones while I'm doing this and listen to something? It would really make it easier for me. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. So I put in my like headphones and I just listened to podcasts while I was doing my file audits. And it was like what got me through those days because it was so boring otherwise. And so I binge listened Serial.
Hey,
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was the other podcast that like really
Serial.
got me into
Forgot
like,
about that one.
into podcasting. And I feel like that was kind of the opener for a lot of people. Like the door was open at that point and people were like, oh,
Yeah.
podcast, that's cool.
Now everybody's starting podcasts.
Well,
so-
and that was like the beginning of like true crime podcasting. Like that was like the grandfather of like true crime podcasts was Serial.
Right.
So
That's good. I should get back into that podcast. I wonder if they're still doing it.
I'm sure they are. I haven't looked at it in a while, but
We'll talk about podcasts a little bit later in our what are you listening to?
Yeah.
Sure, because I am listening to some podcasts right now. But yeah, it's kind of nuts like how things have changed and how radio's changed and all this other stuff. We were talking about that last night. Shout out Paul.
hi, Paul Nixon.
We were talking about that a little bit. Your brother was talking about how he worked at a radio station,
Yeah.
KKIM and KARS.
KARS in Belen, New Mexico.
Belen.
No longer exists. Hi,
Like how
Russell.
our cat Russell just comes and hugs you. He's
He's
just like,
obsessed with me. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
but yeah, our parents still don't understand podcasts completely.
I was trying, okay, so I have to say, I made progress with my mom though. Like I showed her, I like connected her earbuds to her phone and it was like, I could see the magic in her eyes. I showed her how to use them. I showed her how she could stream music, which is hilarious because you were telling me how somehow
your mother
yes.
Deleted or disabled the Google Play Store.
Yeah, that would be something my mom would do on accident, and she totally fucked the entire situation. Like,
yeah, that's like even if I tried to on my phone, like because I have an Android and I have a iPhone, but like I have my Play Store right here. If I like select the settings on my Play Store app, most of the apps you have an option to delete. The Play Store, like look here, I can uninstall it.
Look here, you.
Look here. I can't
Look
delete
here,
it.
See?
And your mom figured that out, and I'm like, cool.
She didn't figure it out. She did it on accident, and this is like my parents have this like amazing ability to completely screw up technology, like irreparably forever, and they don't even know what they're doing. And I'm just like, how did you even do this?
Think about the world that they are in now, though. Like,
it's scary for them.
Yeah, it's so, and I think that might be part of why our culture right now in the United States is so
fear-mongering.
Up in arms.
Yeah.
Up in arms.
Yeah.
Because life has changed for boomers a lot. Like I can have a little bit of empathy for their generation because like things kind of just worked out. You know what I mean? Like you did the things that we did that didn't work out for us. They did those and that worked out.
Yeah.
You graduated high school, you went to college. Oh, you got married at 20 or whatever, like
there's a big economic and technological divide, like probably bigger than there ever has been in our country ever.
Yeah.
Because even their parents didn't have like the divide of like quite as drastic, like technology changing so rapidly like our parents do with us and our generation. It's just crazy because I was like showing her how she could stream music and I was like trying to get that and she's like, you mean I can just, but do I have to download it? I was like, no. It's like, and I was like trying to explain it to her. I'm like, it's like listening to a radio station, but it's already there. You just have to like push the button. And then based on what you listen to, it'll tell you other things that you might like. And she's like, but do I have to tell them? I'm like, no, the algorithm knows that already. And she was just like, I couldn't quite explain it, but she knows it works and she likes it. So that's where we're at right now.
Hey, cool.
But podcasts, like, it's funny because my parents still, to listen to like the What's Up ABQ podcast, they still go directly to the website and click on the link. They don't know how to get to it. And I've tried to tell them you can just go to like a podcast like platform and they don't know what that means.
I mean, we can, now that your mom has the Play Store, because I was able to fix it, we can actually get that for her on her phone and just,
We should, because she could probably figure it out. It's just, for her, it's like repetition. She just has to like do it a couple times.
Yeah.
But this cat is like, okay, I love you too.
But, anyways, interesting stuff. I think I need a refill of coffee, so our kids aren't here.
I know.
It's the Parenting Versus podcast, but it's so quiet.
Maybe it's the coffee versus podcast this morning, or the cat.
It's the Parenting Versus Russell.
This guy is
Russell's just like totally just like in love with Lindsay right now and just snuggling.
This cat and I have been through some stuff, and
he's been there for you this year.
Yeah, he's my support cat. That's so dumb to say that out loud. I'm not that person, I promise. Watch me like take him to work and be like, I need this cat with me, guys. Dude. He's my support animal.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, whatever you want to do, I guess. But all right, we'll be back. So yeah, times have changed.
The times, they are a-changing.
Times have changed. So
I wanted to kind of comment on that because I feel like I'm almost 40, so are you. I'm 38 as it stands today.
38.
As of November 28th of this year. And I was talking with a friend of mine and like we were kind of cracking up because we were like, dude, this is like where we become irrelevant in culture a little bit. Like We don't care about fashion like as much as we did in our 20s. Like we're not keeping up with like what Vogue says is fashionable. Um, you know, it's like we're moms, like we're working, but we're just at this point in life where like our priorities are different. And like it's weird to like look at magazines and look at certain things and be like, I feel sort of irrelevant right now. And then like on top of it, none of the magazines that like she or I read right now have like an accurate representation of like where we're at in life. It's kind of strange. So like I see you look confused.
No, I was just thinking about. Sorry, I was thinking about something different.
Okay.
When I was teaching middle school, I was wondering. I was thinking about current fashion, and when I was a middle school teacher in 2015, I was trying to figure out where those kids are now, like what ages they are.
They would be
How old is a seventh grader? 13?
mm,
12?
yeah, 13.
13.
About 13. 13.
So they're 19 years old now.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
they're like, yeah.
Yeah, that's insane.
And it's weird because yeah, like we were just talking, we're like, none of these magazines that we read that are quote unquote for women like really represent like where we're at like as women and as like adults and like being mid 30s, mid to late 30s. It feels like media focuses on like 20 somethings or it's like seniors. But there's not a lot of middle ground, like maybe like parenting magazine or something, but like that's mostly for like kid stuff.
But I don't want to be irrelevant. I still want to like
I mean,
have. Oh, good.
oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. I don't feel like we're irrelevant. We're just pop culture does not have a huge influence on us at this
It's
point.
because there's not a huge demand for like us. There's like we're not our biggest priorities now. This age. A lot of us are married. A lot of us are married or have like a steady relationship or whatever. So we're not going out and like trying to find a mate. Like
Right.
we're past that.
But
But
I think also like our spending power is less than our parents was at our age. So
yeah,
that's a thing. Like economically, they're not people are not directing their advertising stuff towards us because people that are younger than us have more spending power than we do right now. And like
that's a sad truth.
it's true. And our parents' age, like they are financially stable, so they can make more investment type spending things. But like people our age, like because of like economic situations and recessions and student debt, like our money doesn't mean much in this economy right now. And that's interesting because our parents at our age, their money actually had spending power. Like, I don't know, it's a weird thing to think about.
Yeah. I also feel like too, like when I look at pictures of our parents' generation when they were our age, I'm like, wow, they look so old.
Yeah.
Maybe because they just looked more mature. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
I think
Maybe
also,
they just had more of their shit together because they could.
yeah, like they didn't have as much like stress or worry or whatever. But they also, I do feel like each generation is sort of like a carbon copy of the previous generation, but with some mistakes. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's the evolutionary perspective of
Yeah.
like it's funny because for What's Up ABQ, my brother and I, we interviewed these girls who started this magazine in Albuquerque, and the episode's not out yet. It's coming out in like 2 weeks, and
I was there. I tagged along.
yeah, they started this like fashion magazine, and it's a really cool idea. It's really a nice concept. It's great, but when I met them, I was like, they are so young. They're like 19, maybe 20, and like you could tell like they were very into their appearance and looking fashionable and like keeping up with these trends and just and I was like, oh, that's got to be
But
exhausting.
that's their thing too. Like they love fashion.
Yeah, I
So
know, and I can appreciate like their enthusiasm and stuff, but I just thought like for me it was like looking back in time and thinking this is really cool for them right now, but they have to focus like if they're going to continue this on keeping themselves relevant even when their age gets higher. You know what I mean? And that's the hard part, I think. Um it's just interesting too like with like the whole buying a house thing, we were talking to my parents and I think yours too, and we were looking at like housing prices and our parents don't understand like
yeah, sometimes I feel like
they have no idea.
they've given us these options. Like You know what I mean? Like your parents always talk about how the way they got their house was like some gentleman's handshake or something like that. Like, why don't you guys just do that with,
Just walk in
you know,
and see
just
what they're willing. See if they're willing to work with you. We're like that's not.
it's
a real
2022.
thing,
You have,
guys.
yeah. I mean, you could do that in the early 90s. Like, say, hey, let me strike you a deal here. How about we
I
rent? How about we
promise
rent
I
this?
will pay my bills. Here's a proof that I have a job. Give me
We'll
your-
rent for a while, and then we'll just take over the mortgage, and then you'll just sign it over to me. All right, cool. Good talking.
Shake on him. You're a solid guy. Solid
Yeah.
guy. No, and that's the crazy thing is like and we learned recently that like credit, what is it, like the system of credit that we work off of now was invented in 1989. Our parents didn't have to deal with like credit systems. God.
I also wonder too. I was thinking about the credit thing. I wonder if the credit score had to happen. I have not like researched it at all. I just found out that the credit score is a very recent thing, like in the 1980s, I think it was.
1989.
But I
That's when
wonder
they
if the credit score had to come about because of like just really bad ingrained into our culture racism too.
Could be.
Because there have been countless situations.
Like affirmative action.
Well, I don't know much about affirmative action either, other than like I know a lot of people don't like it, but like I would like to research that more too. I don't know much about it, but there were entire neighborhoods like Levittown, New York, where people were successful in the sense that they had jobs and they had money, but if you were a black family, like they would not sell you a house. In fact, it was in the neighborhood like laws or whatever it was, like their little town what are city calls, like ordinances, or I don't know what it was, but basically it was written that they would not sell a house to a black family. So even if your credit or whatever it was like was good,
Financial backing.
your financial situation was good, they would not sell it. So I wonder if that's part of why the credit score had to happen. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to research because that could be like a direct correlating like historical reason for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just crazy too. Like we have talked to our parents about like they seem to not understand like why we can't buy a house. Like we have tried to tell them like it is not that we can't pay our bills. Like, and I think they think that like we're being irresponsible with money or something, and we're like, no guys, it's not that. Like at all.
We're buried in student loan debt.
Right. Like a lot of people our age are like, and it's just a sad truth. Like, it's not like we're unique, and it's crazy because they don't seem to understand that like that affects your credit score a lot. Like my mom was even implying.
Well, you can even have a good credit score, but if you have lots of student loan debt.
That was us last year. We had great credit scores, but our student loan debt was too much, and so we couldn't get a loan. Yeah, they don't understand that. Because those are not the standards that they had to live by when they were trying to buy a house.
Yeah, my dad, I remember when I was going to college, there was this idea kind of tossed at me that I need to just get a summer job to pay for my classes.
Yeah, like that.
Because my dad did that. He went to New Mexico State.
In the 70s.
In the 70s, he went to New Mexico State, and he worked in the green chili fields, like picking peppers or whatever. And
How very New Mexican of him.
I know. And he worked for his semester credits, like he paid for it. But there's no way I would have been able to do that. Even when I was going to college, which was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when publishers started to get really greedy with like their textbooks. And I remember when I bought my first textbook, it was like a I don't know, it was a math book, and it was like $130. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, do I have to buy this? Can I just get the used one? And I found
they'll go change like one or two chapters, and like they'll reword it, and then they'll sell it as a new edition. So you have
they'll do the new editions, but on top of that, to make sure that you didn't buy the used version, they put a unique like course code, like a code in the book.
To register the book.
No, not to register the book, but if you wanted to take the assessment, that the professor had this handshake deal with the publisher, like, hey, yeah, I'll give your assessments. So you had to have the code, so you had to pay the $150 or whatever it was at the time. Like, so there's no way I could have paid for college, like just out of pocket, like work my butt off at a job to do that, like because I still had to pay for rent and food. Like it was just not a thing.
Well, my mom and dad are selling their house, and they're building a house in Ruidoso, New Mexico, and it's kind of in the mountains, and it's mostly Texas, pretty much, because it's owned by Texans. But whatever. Aside from that,
It's really pretty.
it's pretty. They're building a house, and my mom like approached me and was like, "Well, I was just thinking that you guys could buy our house," and I was like, I had to like try really hard not to laugh hysterically at her because I was like, the fact that you even think I could get a loan for your house is like hilarious to me. Like that just shows how far removed like our parents are from the reality of our situation. I was like, are you serious? Like that can't happen for us. I hate to tell you, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just kind of funny because she's like, it's only x XXX $100, and I was like, whatever. Like that's not realistic, bro.
Yeah.
Not in this lifetime.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Yeah, so there's just this big disparity, I think, in understanding technology. There's a lot of gaps in generations, like understanding and relating.
I do feel like our generation, though, is one of those generations. Somebody was telling me that like, generations go in cycles. I don't know where I heard this, but like there's generation cycles, and the last time our generation did this cycle where we disconnected from the previous generation, like a big disconnect, was in the 1960s. And then before that, it was the flappers in the 20s. And now our generation did it.
Yeah,
like,
it's about every 40 years.
I gotta look that up and find out what these cycles are. But
it's a 40-year cycle.
Yeah. But basically, there is this really big disconnect, I feel like, from our generation to our parents' generation. And we're disconnecting in a lot of different ways. Our politics, religion, just like our finances and what we do. But I do notice some things like that we do that we carried on from our last generation. One of those things is like making sure that your kids eat.
Yeah.
And like I'm disconnecting from that. Like I feel like, hey, Juliet, if you don't eat your food, it's okay. You're probably just not hungry. Whereas our generation, our parents were like, eat everything.
Yeah, you need to finish your plate. You need to take a bite of this, and that's a very, and I think that's something that was carried on from our parents' generation, from their parents too, because if you think about people like our parents' parents, our grandparents were alive during the Depression or like the World War II. It was like you don't waste, like you don't be wasteful.
Yeah.
And so that was pushed on our parents, and then it kind of changed into this nuance of like you need to finish your food.
Yeah. My grandpa had a very good like slogan or saying that he would tell us that made a lot of sense. When I would eat at my grandpa's house, he would say, "Take all you want, but eat all you take." I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. It taught me something, even to this day, that I kind of value, I guess. I mean, I do overeat sometimes, but like,
don't we all? God bless America.
God bless America. But he taught me like, just don't waste. Like eat, take what you want, but just eat all of that. Don't throw it away. I don't know.
Yeah. I read somewhere that our generation is going to be the most technologically left behind generation. Did you know that?
Our generation? That's surprising to me.
I think it makes, I get it though. I think because our parents' generation, they are already kind of in the dust. They didn't grow up with technology the way we did. So they're already kind of their own, there's a dividing line there. They're not left behind because I hate to say this, but their lifespans are not going to be long enough to where that's going to be a problem. That sounds terrible, but
they can get through the rest of their life without having to depend on technology like us.
Exactly.
Like
they're depending on our generation to do that for them. But when we are older, we are going to have been in this, like, we know enough about technology to where we feel competent, but it's going to start evolving so much more quickly, even as our kids get older, that we are going to be left behind. And I have to like wrap my head around that.
I've already thought about that in a way, like when I think about Snapchat, because Snapchat hasn't gone away, but like as a teacher, I noticed a lot of the students that were in my classes, like even if they had an iPhone or an Android or whatever, they didn't text message each other. They used Snapchat as their primary like messaging system. Right. All of their friends were on Snapchat. And like there was this thing like for the kids, they had to like keep their streak going, because like if you had like a daily streak where you text message somebody, like there were these like fire emojis behind their name, I think.
See, this is all new information to me. Like
but Snapchat was like that messaging platform for this younger generation, and for me, I'm like, I mean, I have Snapchat. I have like 3 people actual peers that are on Snapchat too, but I
It
don't
wasn't a
message
primary
them.
means of operation for
Yeah.
you.
But already in that one area, we're left behind. You know what
Well,
I mean?
and even like TikTok, like I don't have a TikTok. I don't plan on getting one. I don't even care that much, but I'm like, that's a huge part of
Yeah.
like culture right now. And I'm already like choosing to be behind because I'm just like, it's not relevant to me. But at some point, there's going to come a time where this stuff has to be relevant to me. And I have to either like choose to like allow that
Yeah.
or not. And it's scary.
Yeah. I stayed off the TikTok train for a long time. I thought it was just so my first impression of TikTok, literally we were in Albertsons here in town, and I saw these 2 teenagers and they had like their phones like in selfie mode or whatever, and they're like kind of talking about they kind of like talking to each other about like what moves they were going to do or whatever. And then they pressed record and I could see them do this little like dance thing. I'm like, okay, that's TikTok. All right, whatever. But now TikTok is more of like a platform like YouTube, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Like
It's
you don't have to participate, but
Well, there's some like YouTubers that I like watch like exclusively, and most of their content is on TikTok now. And it's interesting because I'm like, I still watch them on YouTube, but like if I wanted more of their content, I could go on TikTok and that's where I would find it.
yeah.
And I'm sort of just like, now I'm just like a curmudgeon. I'm like, no.
I mean,
Not gonna do it.
I have TikTok, and the reason I pushed back is because of the whole weird thing with China and how
Yeah.
they're spying on you or whatever. But like, I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm being spied on by everybody. I'm almost giving up, but I'm not. So, but there is some really interesting content on TikTok. Like, it knows the algorithm on TikTok is super amazing. It knows what you like. So most of my TikTok is like musicians doing these really cool, like, I don't know, bass solos or guitar solos, or they do a lot of these like duets. They call them duets, where somebody will record like a vocal track and then they say, hey, duet me. So somebody will duet them, and which it meshes their tracks together, and then they do like these really cool harmony things. Like, there's a lot of really cool music stuff.
TikTok is just one giant robot brain, and it's just a study on humankind, and eventually it's just going to take over, and it's just studying our behavior until it can imitate it, and then it's going to take it over, and then singularity at the end.
Hey, the end.
Kind of a
Or
fatalist, okay?
the simulation is over at that point.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about. Even like with Christmas, like the toys our kids talk about, I'm like, what is that? And how do you know about that? Because I don't buy that, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you heard about it because I don't even know what the hell that is.
Juliet. So I put YouTube Kids on my phone.
Same on my laptop.
And she knows how to use it really well. She has her own little profile. I kind of trust YouTube Kids. Like, there was a point where the parenting world was saying, "Hey, be careful about YouTube because people are doing these weird Peppa Pig things or whatever."
Yeah, I remember that the algorithm. We talked
Yeah.
about this on another podcast. Yeah.
But YouTube responded, and like I don't want to just hand my kid my phone and say like, "Hey,
Be like, good luck
have fun." But sometimes you need 30 minutes to 45 minutes just to be like, "Okay,
to shower.
you're occupied. I can lay down, and then I'm gonna watch a YouTube video." But
I need to not parent for 2 seconds.
right. But I think I trust the YouTube Kids thing. But she watches a lot of the
It's
the
more
kids like unboxing toys and stuff.
protected. Well, and you can also see like you can set it to like a mode where like they can't just browse. Like it will just come up with the next like approved type video rather than them just randomly scrolling for whatever.
Right. But you're talking about how they find out about those toys. It's
Yeah.
YouTube Kids. Like there's channels where these kids just unbox toys.
That's insane. I know. We got some interesting Christmas.
Yeah. I wasn't outraged,
No.
but it kind of sort of made me stop and think for a minute.
You need to explain the
Okay.
context.
Our daughter loves LOL Surprise.
Stripper surprise.
LOL Surprise, and what's the other one? LOL Surprise, and then
Nana surprise?
no, there's LOL Surprise.
There's so many.
Like, one of them are the bigger dolls.
They're like the big sisters.
Yeah,
there's,
which
like,
which ones are the babies?
There's like I don't remember exactly
Yeah.
what the thing. There's like a bunch of different type versions of LOL surprise.
But they come in like an egg, and like you unbox it, and it's like a whole experience. But Juliet loves them.
She likes
And
the fact that she can unwrap like a bunch of little tiny things. It's just that.
so I have to like sort of check myself a little bit, like when I watched her like take apart this toy, because I'm used to like, okay, so I'm not saying like, oh, my daughter she has to have like dolls and like Barbies or whatever, and
Right.
like she can play with dinosaurs or she can play with whatever is
does.
interesting to her. But these toys are new and they're sort of like breaking barriers, I think. Like, I don't know about barriers, but they're just
They're
not
testing some parent boundaries for
Yeah.
some people.
And I think I could have been triggered into outrage for sure, but it was just sort of weird for me. But this toy that she had, he's this fabulous little boy, right?
It's an LOL doll. It's a
Is
boy.
an
It's the
LL
boy.
doll.
It's one
He's
of
a
the boys.
fabulous little boy. He's got a purple beard.
Yeah.
He's got purple hair. He's very fancy, sparkly clothes. He comes with a little shaver.
Yeah.
That you can shave his little beard off.
I didn't know that.
And then he comes with pants. And when you take off the pants, he's got a little penis.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. My daughter doesn't have a penis. She's 5. Does she need to know that these little boys have penises? And does she need to know the general like shape and structure of the male anatomy?
Well, and that's the thing. She knows that boys and girls are different. We've already had that conversation. She knows that like boys and girls have different privates, and like we've talked about that, and like that's why she doesn't like take baths with her brother anymore, who's like a year older than her. Like they used to when they were little, but now they don't. You know, she knows why. Yeah.
So it just kind of brought up a question for me. I'm like, is that okay? Like, do my kids need to know? Because I guess like if you think about, that's where my brain goes. Like back when we were in tribes, like where humans began,
Yeah.
like clothes were probably optional for everybody. So as a 5-year-old early human, you probably knew, oh yeah, that's dad's penis, that's brother's penis. Mom has breasts. Like,
Well, there's a different attitude around the human body when you're more open to like anatomy, I think, and educating them. I think the issue was not that it has like genitalia. Like that's not the issue because boys have that and it is what it is. I think the issue for a lot of parents would be like if they don't know that and their child opens it and then maybe they haven't had that conversation yet, it's sort of like putting the parents in a spot where like it might be a forced thing that they have to deal with when they're not ready.
and definitely my parents weren't ready. My mom gorilla glued the pants to the doll. So,
Well, and here's the thing. I felt like in that scenario, you and I did not make a big deal about it. We were like, oh yeah, he's a boy. Yep, those are his privates. And we left it at that.
I was taken aback. I'll be honest. Like I wasn't.
We just weren't expecting it because I haven't seen a male doll like with that, like that she's had ever. But like, I feel like you and I did a good job of like not making a huge deal about it. It wasn't like, like, oh my gosh, and I feel like if you just explain to your children when they're ready about the differences, that can matter versus like freaking out the fact, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The United States is a very puritanical view of like sexuality and the human body. And like, like we've told our kids, there's nothing wrong with having privates. There's nothing wrong with having your own body. Your body's your body. It's just different from other people's bodies and that's okay. I think the issue comes with like the way you treat that. And like, do you look at your body as a shameful thing?
Yeah.
Or do you explain it and use it as a teachable moment? Again, there might be some kids that are too young to have that teachable moment right then and there. And I think that's where the hard part was like, what if she was like 3 or 2, and then you're like, okay, not ready to have that conversation yet. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's like one of those questions that parents have been wondering about for years. I'm thinking about that ad from the 1970s, that public service ad that I showed you, where little Johnny's in his bed masturbating. It's like and then mom comes and it's like totally just awkward 1970s.
But they made it awkward. Like that's the thing. Like the mom didn't say like.
But she's like, Johnny, I know what you're doing. And what you're doing is perfectly normal. She like lingers in his bedroom for like 2 minutes and like Johnny's just like, okay, mom.
Get the fuck out. I know. It's like, but that's the thing is I think you can be like human and understanding with your kids and talk to them about like the body and sexuality when it's time. I don't think you have to make it as weird as we've made it for the last like 40 years, like.
Yeah. I think I liked that message though. Or she was like understanding or whatever, and like in this weird 1970s sort of way.
Well, she wasn't condemning or anything.
Yeah.
It was just like awkward the way she delivered the words. It was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the commercial was very, very awkward, but like parents, what I'm trying to say is like parents have been trying to figure out, hey, how do we bridge this gap for the kids, like in a way that makes sense and doesn't make them like feel bad about their bodies and like, I don't know.
Well, and I think that, just you and I having grown up in the 90s and 2000s in like Christian culture, like there was a big disconnect from like sexuality and your body and loving your body and being okay with your body and like what that means versus like shaming somebody.
Yeah.
The kids whose parents were super strict and didn't talk to them about sex were the ones that were out having it. Like, I'm just going to be real with you. Like,
The kids that oh yeah.
the ones whose parents didn't talk about sex and were like, save sex until marriage. Those were the ones that were out like
I think South Park did an episode of that. South Park did. I mean, I haven't watched South Park in a long time, but like they used to like make these really interesting episodes that were totally relevant, and like they were not afraid to talk about these cultural things. But there was a South Park episode. It was like Christians. Oh no, maybe was it Family Guy? I think it might have been Family Guy, but where these Christians were like, oh yeah, we're virgins, we're pure, but like behind the doors, they were doing these weird things like ear sex and like.
I mean, I hate to go here, but I'm gonna go here. Josh Duggar, like that dude just got convicted on CP charges, and they said the investigator.
What's CP?
I can't say it on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
But people, it's
okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the investigator that looked into the case basically said it's some of the worst they've ever seen.
That is disgusting.
So, coming from a family who doesn't talk about that and talks about purity and forces like purity culture on their children, that's what you get. You get a child who finds out about sex in the wrong ways and goes to the wrong places and looks at it and thinks that that's okay. And now he's in jail for CP for a very long time. And like you need to have a healthy perspective and attitude around it, because if you don't, they're going to find it somewhere else and it's not going to be the place you want them to.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's a very extreme case in point, and it's very sad, but like you really need to be open.
Yeah. So I definitely just want to teach our kids. I want to be the best parent that I possibly can be to them, and I think we're doing okay, but like I hope we teach them well.
Me too.
So.
Me too.
Anyways.
I did want to I know we have to kind of wrap up in a minute. We've got to go pick up those little rugrats. Your mom's probably.
I think I need a Blake's breakfast burrito. Not a sponsor.
I was thinking about Taco Cabana, also not a sponsor.
We will sponsor you.
Taco Cabana, here's some free advertising. You're delicious.
Pay us in tortillas.
Eggs Mexicana, my favorite breakfast from Taco Cabana. No, I wanted to say, for those that don't know about our life changes, did you just spill coffee in your beard?
I did.
You all right?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Did you want to recap real quick?
Me?
Oh, did you? Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think you.
Because we didn't really do that.
Either, I know.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we haven't podcasted since like I don't know, September.
I know.
I've been super busy, 70-hour weeks, spending time in Spokane, spending time in Colorado Springs. Most of the summer I was gone. Russell, that was a Riley Boo on our Google Home on our screen we're sitting in our living room. I'll just paint a picture real quick. Yeah. We're sitting in our living room. Our Google Chromecast cycles through pictures, and a picture of our son is on the screen. He
just looks like that picture is like all of the Rileyness. Like that is just him in his full Riley.
Yep. But yeah, so I spent a lot of time away from home in 2021, like almost 2 months in Washington, while my family was here on summer vacation. So, and then shout out to Lindsay for like basically like picking up all of the slack.
So I was basically like a single parent. I think we talked a little bit. I was like a single parent all summer, and we like moved into this house, and then Lorenzo had to leave. So yeah. I've lived in this house longer than Lorenzo has.
I spent half the year in the Pacific Northwest of 2021. Like
Yeah.
first 4 months was in Portland, and then May and June I was in Washington, Eastern Washington, and then finally got to move home in July. Yeah, because it was Fourth of July. Fourth of July. I spent. Yeah, Fourth of July. I was in Washington.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I thought you were gonna say you were here. I was like, nope.
Yeah, the 4th of July, I was in Washington. So I finally got to come home in like, I want to say the second week of July or something. But so we haven't really podcasted. We haven't really had a lot of time. But now I am no longer with the company that had me, this online retailer giant.
That also makes penis rockets.
They make penis rockets. Yeah. So I'm no longer with them. I got a job, a government job, and it is a lot different. I feel like I can breathe.
They told him not to work today.
Yeah, it was a holiday, and I was.
Which is great.
It's a state holiday, so or a national holiday or whatever. So I was gonna come into work. Like I'm like it's Friday. It's it's a work week day. And my boss texted me, and she's like, because I was giving her I just wanted to keep her updated with my plans, like what I'm gonna do and like what I'm gonna get done. And she's like, "Oh, don't work tomorrow. It's a holiday." And I'm like, "What?
And
What
this
is
is
it?"
totally opposite from like the beginning of like the holiday season where Schmamazon was like, oh, not only do you have to work like 70 hours a week and you have a split weekend and you need to come in earlier every day. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Also.
During our peak season, which was all of November and like all of December, there was a week. So my schedule would change from week to week. But one week I worked Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, work Thursday, Friday, off Saturday, and then I go back Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, off Friday, Saturday, and then like the next week it would change again. Mm-hmm. So it was just like I was freaking tired. I had to be there. Like the beginning of it, I had to be there at 5:30 in the morning. So I was waking up at some ungodly hour, like I hated it. And then I would be there until 7. So I was calculating this as I was like, because I still found the time to like journal somehow. But there was weeks where I would spend most of my day, more than 12 hours of the 24-hour day, at work or on my way to work than I was actually at home. Like it was just straight bananas. Like, and to repay me, they gave me a jacket with a branded logo on it.
Thanks so
I actually
much.
I do like the jacket. It's a North Face jacket, but
Not a bonus and some
that
time with your family.
that was the repayment. So I got the jacket, and then I got access to what's called a manager's closet, where there was unlimited Red Bull because they knew they knew everybody was freaking tired out of
really
their minds.
looking forward to looking out for people's physical and mental health there.
But really, what I wanted was just more time with my family, and yeah. So, but I'm not there anymore, and now we have more time to podcast. We have more time together. It's good.
Well, I wanted to say too, it was crazy. Like Lorenzo and I went up to Santa Fe on his day off when he was still working for that giant business. And there was a state job fair. And Lorenzo was like, well, maybe we should just go and see what it's about. And so we went up there. He interviewed like for a couple different positions. We went out to dinner. We're like driving home at like 7:30 at night and the phone rang and they offered him a job. And so we were like, sold. Yes, we'll take it. When do we start? So it was like right before Christmas, which was like so nice, like such a relief. Like he got a week with us, like just relaxing and recuperating and not being a robot, which was awesome. And like we're kind of realigning our life now after that crazy adventure.
Yeah. A wild 2021.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we are, and it's...
Do you feel rested? Have you caught up on all your rest from the last year?
I have... my watch tracks my sleep. I have an Apple Watch, and it tracks my sleep because I sleep with my watch just so... Because it'll occasionally like check your heart rate, check your blood oxygen.
Speaking of that, I wanted to side note too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I have to say this because I can say it. If you or a loved one is considering trying to get a job at that giant company, don't do it. Seriously, it is the worst for families. It is not a family-friendly company. It's terrible. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Also, it affected Lorenzo's health like a lot. He had to go to the ER because his heart rate was crazy. His health was really like getting affected like in a major way. It's a lot. Don't do it.
Yeah. Mental health is something that they definitely they're talking about it because they have to, but there's not a whole lot of action behind it. It's a
All the
really
commercials are false, guys.
it's a really hard company to work for. But anyways, yeah, and even not even just in like the operations and like the warehouse. I've talked to people who are in corporate, who also mentioned too, like, hey, like the work life balance is not it's not amazing. It is a big corporation. They do have a lot of really cool benefits. They do pay well. Like if you climb the corporate ladder, like you are going to get paid. Like
You're not going to see your family.
yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a trade-off. So, but anyways, yeah. What was I talking about?
I don't know. Just realigning with life at this point, I think.
No, I was gonna say something too. I forgot. Oh well. I'll go back and listen to the podcast and remember it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
What are you listening to?
Let's take a quick break, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we'll be right back.
Out of the sunlight and into the flood. Why do you always just string me along? And I don't want to feel alone.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
So, what are you listening to?
Oh my goodness. What am I listening to? I feel like I say that every time, but it's true. So for music, there's this lady, her name is Catie Turner with a C, Catie with a C, Turner. She has this song called God Must Hate Me. It's really good. And I feel like it kind of resonates with how I've been feeling a lot lately. Really, really good. You can find her on YouTube. You can find her on Google Music. Yeah, so...
Catie Turner?
yeah, with a C. Catie with a C, Turner.
So, do you want to talk about why the song resonates with you or not really?
Not really right now.
Okay.
Maybe another time. I'm also listening to this band called Slomosa, Slomosa. They embody a lot of like old school guitar sounding riffs, like classic rock sounding. It's slightly metal, which is super weird for me, but I really like them.
What's it called?
Slomosa. There's a song called Horses. That's the one I would check out. It's just killer. It's such a banger, guys.
You're so relevant.
I know. No, it's just really good. It's like really hard. It's very like rock out in your garage kind of music, which I freaking love. That's kind of my jam. I've been kind of throwing it back a lot to like some old school David Bowie, which is weird. David Byrne and like Peter Gabriel, like Talking Heads. And then Peter Gabriel too. Like I've been kind of in this 80s mode again a little bit. And then I've been listening to some hip hop, J. Cole. The song I really like from J. Cole is called hunger.on.hillside. Super good. I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know what it is. Oh, and then there's a band called Gardens and Villa, and I think I've talked about them before, but they're good. They're just really good. There's also this really random, and it's like good for background noise. It's by D Park, like D. Park. He does remixes of classical music into like lo-fi songs. It's like really good brain food, like brain music. If you need to study or you just need some sounds, like, you know, maybe not singing, but you just need some like some noise. And then you'll laugh at me. There's this band called Mariachi El Bronx.
Oh, you've shouted them out before.
I probably have. I'm still listening to them. They do some remixes of some other songs, like popular songs, but in mariachi style, which I really appreciate. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been with music lately. And then tennis the band Tennis. I've been kind of doing a little bit of that. And I think that's it for now. I mean, I've been sort of on a repeat music phase, so nothing too brand new, nothing too crazy. I feel like there's one more artist though, like hip hop that I've been listening to quite a bit that I'm drawing a blank on at the moment, and I don't know why that is. I've kind of been listening to Tyler the Creator. He's not my favorite, but he has some good songs. The song I like is New Magic Wand. It's kind of the song I've been listening to. And that's really it for me as far as music goes. What about you?
What about like podcasts? Are you listening to podcasts right now?
Yeah. Again, I would like to listen to the Spooked podcast, but we'll talk about that later. There's one called the Neurodivergent Nurse podcast. She's a nurse who has ADHD, and she kind of just talks about like different things that affect her life. It's interesting to me because I have ADHD, so it's, solidarity, I guess. And then I'm going to start a new podcast. I haven't started it yet. It's a true crime podcast called What's the Damage? And they talk about true crime. They try to do one for every state, like a true crime road trip into every state. So that's kind of interesting to me. I'm going to check that out starting pretty soon. And then kind of just the same stuff with me. I listen to a lot of like corporately produced podcasts. Like the 48 Hours podcast is just basically the episode of 48 Hours just on a podcast. So I listen to that. Women in ADHD is a good one. Interviews with Katie Weber. That's kind of just for me. And then I also downloaded one that I thought looked good. It's called What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't. Talking about marriage and just kind of like different issues in marriage and aspects of marriage and relationships. Haven't started it, but I'm going to very soon. And the other podcast I like that I've been sort of slowly listening to is called Lies We Tell. And it's different. It's a Luminary podcast, so it's it's going to be good. I'm going to read the description because it's interesting. Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Joseph Ellis's vivid storytelling about our national history earned from his many fans, including Alex Gibney. But when the Boston Globe's Walter Robinson looks into Ellis's personal history, he found some darker truths. So it's basically about lies people tell in their everyday lives that they don't think have consequences. Like, for example, episode 6, Freedom to Lie. After two men lied, pretending to have served in the military to get out of jail, a Montana judge sentences them to carry signs announcing "I am a liar" in some very unusual, detailed parole conditions. We examine the war between American values in case of stolen valor. So just different ways people lie and how it like affects things. It's just a very interesting podcast because I think people tell lies in their lives all the time. Like even if it's like a little white lie and they don't realize like the consequence it can have. So that's it.
Fun times. Yeah. I want to check out those podcasts. Those sound pretty good. I've been listening to a lot more music just because I have time like during the day to listen to music. But some of the songs that I've liked this week include Beautiful Birds Flying by a band called Valley Maker. Jesus Christ by Brand New. Brand New's a hard one for me to listen to just because like I listened to them a lot back in the day, but also it's one of those, I don't know, the lead singer is a rapist, so like I know that's hard. Yep. But the music, I don't know how to do that. Still trying to sort through that.
His social history sucks, but their music is pretty good, and that's hard.
Yeah. But so that song, the other things I've liked this week, Not Now by Blink-182. I like this song, Fall Back Down by Rancid. This song, I shared it with my friend, and he's like, yeah, those lyrics are dark and like kind of gruesome, but the song was really good. It's called How Will I Rest in Peace If I'm Buried in a Highway?
Oh, I've shouted that one before.
By Kenny Hoopla.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a punk rocky sort of thing. Just the Two of Us, Grover Washington Jr. And then I have started to go back. So I was reminiscing about compilation discs. They're not a thing anymore, really. But one compilation CD that I used to love is Punk Goes Pop, and there's a newer one.
Wait, wouldn't it be Pop Goes Punk?
Punk Goes Pop, because it's punk bands that are covering like pop songs.
Okay.
So the one that the song that I liked a lot that I was listening to, I've always liked this band, Dance Gavin Dance. They're really gritty and like energetic and technical.
They just came through Albuquerque in October.
I know, I missed them.
Sorry.
But they covered That's What I Like by Bruno Mars. I showed it to you and you're just like, ugh.
I have a very love-hate relationship with pop punk. Like, I either love the song or I hate it with all of my being.
But they're not super pop punk. They're not like Newfound Glory. They're more a mixture of like hardcore and rock. I don't know, but they're good.
Yeah.
So yeah, just having a chance to listen to more music has been good. Good.
Do we need to talk about puberty?
Yeah.
Next episode, Lorenzo hits puberty.
Uh-huh. What's this hair?
Oh my god.
Anyways.
What are we watching? Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, my podcast.
Oh, sorry. I'm distracted.
So, my sort of taste and interest in podcasts kind of goes all over the place. But so I went through like a sort of philosophical religious podcast phase. I listened to a lot of Peter Enns. I listened to Bad Christian Podcasts, believe it or not.
Every time.
I listened to the Liturgists. I'm not really listening to them that much anymore. Not the Liturgist or Bad Christian at all anymore. And Peter Enns, I still like his podcast. I like his angle. I like his like sort of insight and his understanding and how he's like he brings he knows a lot, but he comes with like a very curious like sort of attitude. Not like he doesn't act like he knows everything basically. Right. So I don't really listen to that as much, but I'll put it on if I have time. But I'm going into an area of more of like science, curiosity, and discovery. I think it's partly because of the James Webb telescope that was just launched into space. I think it was like Christmas. And sort of like that sort of sparked my wonder a bit more, and it kind of rekindled a little bit of that, because I'm not teaching science anymore, so I'm not talking about it with kids anymore, but like those sort of things interest me, and what the James Webb telescope is going to do is really fascinating to me. So I started listening to Sci Now, which is a podcast about just science discovery, and like they interviewed a science magazine editor, and they were talking about like the evolution of science from when their magazine was first published, which was like the turn of the century, the 19th to the 20th century, and it was really interesting interview. And then I'm listening to an archaeology podcast. I think it's called Archaeology Now. But it's these two archaeologists, and I think they're a married couple, because they travel around the world, not around the world, but around the country in like an RV. And like one week they'll be in Oregon, the next week they'll be in like Montana or like Nevada or whatever, and they're just talking about these archaeological digs, and it's really, I mean, when I talk about it, it sounds boring, but it's interesting. They have a good chemistry, and they just talk about science and discovery. And we've been watching. We are caught up on what's it called? I always forget the name of that sci-fi on Apple TV. Invasion. We're caught up on that. Now we're starting the sort of high fantasy show on Amazon Prime.
You made me start watching this show against my will, and it's actually getting good, and you fall asleep all the time.
I did not make you.
Yeah, and you fall asleep all the time now.
That's because I'm getting old. I'm a dad.
Well.
But what is it called? Wheel of Time? Mm-hmm. And it started off, I'm like, oh, this is like one of those fantasies that's just like low budget and I'm like, whatever. It's just kind of whatever, you know, and it's turning out to be pretty interesting, I think.
Well, I did like a deep dive. Like I took it to the lab because I was like, what is this even based on? So apparently, for those of you that don't know, like me, it's based on some of the best-selling science fiction series ever.
I think the author.
In the 90s?
I think the author also authored Conan the Barbarian.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'll have to verify that.
But I guess the whole idea is like I was reading this article about it. It's like based off of one of the best-selling science fiction series ever. It was written in the 90s, I believe. And the interesting thing is that it encompasses almost all of the fantasy and like high fantasy themes and tropes from like a lot of other famous things. So it's like you have people that are outcasts that are going on a journey. It's like all of the tropes you would expect in like a fantasy novel, like interwoven into this like series, and that's why it got so much acclaim. So I didn't know that, but I researched it. It's pretty interesting actually.
So it's not on the same author. Conan the Barbarian was written by Robert E. Howard. This is a book by somebody else.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, it's interesting. So we have time to watch shows. I'll get to the point where I stay awake. I promise.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Sounds neat.
All right, we're gonna wrap up here. Happy 2022. I hope this year brings you some
Much joy.
Some joy.
Peace. No more COVID. Let's
Peace.
get vaccinated, people.
Peace
Please.
is a good one. Yeah, get that booster.
Get boosted.
Wear your mask.
Don't be a dick.
Yeah. Sorry, we just pissed off like at least one person.
You know what? If that one person wants to be that way, don't listen.
You can listen.
You're so worried about offending hypothetical people. It doesn't matter.
I don't want to offend people. I want to.
It's your podcast. You can offend whoever you want.
Let's have a discussion, all right? And then we'll talk about how you're wrong. All right. Have a good one. We'll talk to you on the next one.